remind ourselves. First, always mute yourself to avoid disturbing the class. Second, take good notes and write down your question. Now, tonight's class also is going to be real practical in the sense that, well, if you come to readjust your mind of what you already know about the topic, when you take your agenda, you see that it is course 108, personal protective equipment. As a technician, as a safety officer or manager or supervisor, you should be quite familiar with this subject. But tonight, we will be delighted to welcome our trainer. He is coming directly from Nigeria, and his name is Kolawole. I believe he is with us. So, without much ado, let us invite him as he take the floor. Mr. Kolawole, you are highly welcome as we are handing over the class to you. Okay, as he load me, I see it seems that I saw him before, probably network. So let's welcome the Deputy Governor. Since the weekend have passed, let her brief us. By the time the trainer will be logging, so I saw him earlier. Mr. Kolawole. So our Deputy Governor, Her Excellency Solomon Oluna.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Yeah, good evening.
Nice to see all of us here again. I'm sure we learned a lot last week, and we've been putting them to practice in one way or the other. So, as the class resumes again this week, please, I urge everyone to be in his or her best behavior. If you know you're in a noisy place, endeavor to mute your mic always. I know sometimes our hands might mistakenly touch the unmute or mute the microphone something, but please let's just avoid that, because that will be very distracting, as Mr. Leon had said earlier. So let's be attentive, let's be active, let's be cautious too, because I know that this course about PPE, right? It's about the PPE, right?
What I heard, yes.
Oh, all right. It will be very interesting, and I'm sure it will be interactive too. So let's all just enjoy the class today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Her Excellency, the Deputy Governor. Our trainer is going to be Ayoola Kolawole. It seems that I saw him earlier among the participants.
So good evening. I'm having difficulty joining through my laptop, but I'm talking through my phone. I don't know maybe how the admin set up their passwords. So I can join through the phone, which I can share my slide through the phone.
I have just admitted him with another sign-in, so I hope everything will be okay now.
Okay, I think I can join through the laptop now. Kindly confirm you can hear me through the laptop.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you very much, and welcome again.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It's evening from here in Nigeria. So I'll be sharing my slide. The topic for this evening, it's about PPE. But talking about PPE, it goes beyond the PPE alone. No matter what, I'll still try as much as possible to still do some recap of what we've learned so far in the past. Because there is no way we talk about PPE without talking about the other topics. Please confirm you're on the call with me, please.
Yes, we can hear you. Are you able to join?
Yes,
Yeah, we can see your screen now.
Please confirm you can see my screen now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks. So what can we see on the screen now, please? I just want to double check to be on the same page.
You scroll.
Course outline. All right, thanks. So we'll be thanks. My name is Ayoola Kolawole from Nigerian here. So I'll be taking course 108, which talks about personal protective equipment. But before going further, we just need to summarize what we have in the course outline. So we shall be talking about the introduction to personal protective equipment, the OSHA standard. When I'm talking of OSHA, I'm not talking of the OSHA association, to be precise. I'm talking of the UK standard related to personal protective equipment. And moving forward, there is no way we want to talk about any topic under safety without talking about assessment, risk assessment, hazard assessment, whichever way, and without talking about workplace inspections. So when you are talking about inspections, you are still talking about assessing a workplace. And when you are assessing a workplace, it means you want to know the best and suitable control of whatsoever hazard you are able to identify in your work environment. So PPE training, PPE selections, type of PPE, and responsibilities when it comes to PPE. I have my own duty when it comes to PPE as an employee, and also as an employer, we have our own responsibilities when it comes to PPE. Likewise, supervisor, we also have our own duty of care when it comes to PPE. Please kindly confirm we are still together.
Yeah,
right,
we are
please,
with you.
I love communication is a two-way thing. I don't want to be talking alone. Please, let's try as much as possible to respond whenever I ask if we are together, please. So going forward, for the course introductions, we have, as we all know, we've been talking about hierarchy of control, and now we have the PPE. And talking about PPE, when it comes to control under safety, PPE is the least on our control. After talking about eliminations of hazard, talking about substituting hazard, then we talk about engineering measures of controlling hazard, followed by administrative methods. So in combinations, we can always combine to see which of these control is suitable for us. So after talking about number 1 to 4 control measures, the number 5, which is the least out of the control, it is mandatory and essential. It is the only control that we can never there is no way we want to put other controls without putting PPEs to support. There is no way you want to put an engineering control without talking about the usage of PPE, like task-specific PPE in our work environment. No matter what we are doing in safety, no matter how we want our environment to be safe, there is always need to ensure we make provisions of personal protective equipment to our workforce. So talking about occupational health, this is OSHA that we are talking about, and this is UK OSHA. OSHA established 29 standard talks about the personal protective equipment. Not only OSHA, ILO also made emphasis on the need for an employer to ensure that they make provisions for PPE, not just PPE, but adequate personal protective.
Yes, we can see it again. Thank you.
Can we see now? Okay. So like I said, employees have their responsibility. Employers also have their responsibility when it comes to making provisions for PPE. And when it comes to making provisions to any job-related or associated risk, so we always make provisions. We make sure that we make provisions for task-specific PPE. As we progress, we shall see that in this presentation. But my explanation will be more of practical rather than reading this slide. But I will always project this slide so that we can follow from our side. So, what do we mean by personal protective equipment? So, like I said earlier, the word personal means the tools that you need to use on your own to prevent yourself from work-related hazard. What is the function of personal protective equipment here? The fact that we put engineering control, elimination control, and substitution control in place, that doesn't mean incident or accident will not happen. Okay, then we say, if it happens, the personal protective equipment also doesn't stop accident or incident from happening. but what it does is it to minimize the impact, the pains that you're supposed to have if it touches you directly. Take for instance, if an object is falling from height, from a distance, you know it always gathers weight, it gathers momentum. If such an object drop on a bare head without having our hard hat or our helmet, we all know the impact will be more higher than when it hits that same head when you are putting on your hard hat. So, and that is the functions of personal protective equipment here, and that is the main definition of personal protective equipment. It is always supportive to other controls we put in place based on hierarchy of control. When it comes to hierarchy of control, we needed to follow it accordingly, from the elimination to substitution, from substitution to administrative, from substitution to engineering, and from engineering to administrative. So after the administrative, then we talk about the personal protective equipment, which is always a backup to any control we put in place. So some example of personal protective equipment: we have gloves, we have safety footwear. To be candid, safety footwear is mandatory in any work environment. Safety helmet is also mandatory in any work environment. Likewise, eye goggles, they are like general personal protective equipment. But there are some task-specific personal protective equipment, like our life jacket. Life jacket is only meant for when you are walking close to water, or when, like in mariners or seafarers, or whosoever that their activities permit them to walk on top of the water, above water, close to water. That is when the offshore workers, the life jacket is essential and it's required. Not just essential, it is mandatory that they are meant to put on life jackets. So likewise, we have high visibility jacket, that's reflective vest. It is also essential in our day-to-day activities in any work environment. So we have aprons, the coveralls. It all depends on the associated risk before you can use your coverall. Like admin people, majorly they make use of reflective vest. Then we talk of clothing to protect against cold, safety harness. So talking about safety harness, some people call it safety belt. So it is always used mainly for working at height. I believe in the course of this course, we've learned about working at height. Then what do we call working at height? By standard, some people associate working at height to an activities that is above 1.8. Some standard talks about 2 meters. But when I'm defining work at height for people, I used to use the simplest example, even if it is not up to 1.8. Any activities that you know that you are already above the ground level. So I regarded it as an working at height. But our risk assessment will now guide us on what are the equipment and the tools and the PPE that is required to work in a particular height. When I'm working 1.8 meter, the safety gadgets that I'm meant to use is totally different when I'm working above 3 meter, 4 meter. And likewise, the risk assessment, as we earlier mentioned, will determine what are the controls and the PPE we are meant to put in place. Please confirm I'm still on call and you can hear me, please. So, like talking about the 29 CFR, you don't need to cram the code. It is just all about the standard. What does the standard require? The standard requires that in our work environment, the word employers here means there will be someone assigned or delegate to assess the workplace. But in general terms, it is essential that in every workplace we find ourselves, there is need to carry out an adequate risk assessment to be able to know, like this will guide us to selections of the personal protective equipment we are meant to use. Then before talking about training employees on the use of the personal protective equipment. Always remember, assessment, selections, and training, they go hand in hand when it comes to personal protective equipment. So we talk about the requirement of the employers, meaning they need to do a thorough risk assessment, thorough hazard assessment, workplace assessment to determine what hazards are present in a particular locations and the adequate PPE to be selected for that particular locations, and training of employees on how to use whatsoever the personal protective equipment provided for that employees. So protecting workers. So how do we, it is also the duty of the employers to ensure that they protect their employees from workplace hazard. It is also under the responsibility and the duty of care for the employers. And what is the standard? What does it talk about? They need to protect their employees from injuries, illness, and fatality. And also the employers, it is also their duty to ensure that the physical engineering control, like I said earlier, a proper engineering control is put in place, and where possible, if the hazard can be eliminated, there is also need to eliminate such an hazard. So once we are able to eliminate an hazard, there is no need to put a substitution again. It means we've removed the hazard completely. But removing an hazard completely doesn't mean that that same tax doesn't have another work-related, another inherent hazard. Then there will always be a need to reassess the work environment to know the hazard that is left behind. Once we are able to know the hazard that is left behind, then we make provisions for adequate controls following the hierarchy of hazard control. Then before we talk about PPEs, like I said, PPE is very essential. No matter whatsoever the control we put in place, we can never overemphasize on adding PPEs to whatsoever controls we put in place. Then provision of adequate PPE. You know, we've talked about selections, assessment, then training. Then making provisions means the workers knows what to do, how to use that particular personal protective equipment provided for them for the task they want to embark on. So for hazard identifications, hazard assessments, can we see my screen, please?
Yes, we can see your screen.
What can we see now, please?
Hazard assessment.
Hazard assessment.
Hazard assessment.
Okay, thank you. So for the hazard assessment, just a kind of recap in summary for the hazard assessment. The meaning of that hazard assessment is you need to evaluate every task from A to Z, from the beginning to the end. There is what we call Take 5. Take 5 means you take, like, before you start or embark on your daily activities, just 5 minutes of your time to do a thorough hazard assessment. If you are assessing an hazard, what do you need to consider? You need to consider the people that want to do the job. Safety don't just happen. People make safety to happen. And when you are considering people, you need to be sure if they are certified to carry out the task. Not only for them to be certified, you also need to be sure that they are fit to do that job for that particular moment. Okay, once you confirm they are fit, they are certified to carry out the task, then you need to confirm, do we have adequate staff to carry out that particular task? There are times that, okay, some workers, it requires like 4 personnel to carry out the particular task. If peradventure you're having 3 staff, it means that task might not be continued. We need to make sure that we have enough staff, enough workers to carry out that particular task. So you evaluate the job. Aside from the people, then you narrow it down to the equipment you want to use. Do we have the right equipment to carry out the task? You ask yourself that particular question. The assessment of the work environment is not done by only one individual. It is a teamwork, multidisciplinary task. The person, man A, man B, man C, and D comes together to identify what could go wrong. You check your equipment. Do you have the suitable equipment for the job? If it is working at height, do you have the right tools to do the work at height? The right ladders, scaffolding, man basket, whatsoever parameters or equipment that you are meant to use to work at height. It is very essential to always ensure that we put everything in place. Then you determine what hazards are present. So starting from people down to equipment, then you look at your environment. The weather also matters a lot. Is the weather okay? Is the environment safe for you to work? So once you consider all those things, then the next thing to consider is to consider your emergency. in case of any emergency associated with this task? Do you have the correct emergency number? Do you know what to do? Who is the emergency coordinator? You need to know all this. And likewise, the part that we always miss out when we are doing a risk assessment or hazard assessment is communication. There is need to ensure that we have adequate communications. There is need for us to understand one another. There is need to agree on the mode of communication to carry out a particular task. So having done that, then start thinking about what controls do we need to put in place. And having done that, that's when you now think of, I made mention of people, equipment. Under the equipment, we can consider the personal protective equipment too. Not only the tools that is meant to work, but also the PPEs that we are meant to use for that task. Always, let's try as much as possible when we are evaluating every job. So always remember these 5 key points: people, equipment, your work environment or the weather itself, the communication line or like communication establishment. Then you consider what to do in case of emergency preparedness. It is also a key to whatsoever hazard assessment, risk assessment we are meant to carry out in our work environment. So determine if hazard are present. Whatsoever hazard you know that is present, you should be able to put an adequate control of that particular hazard present. Check for hazard to all parts of the body. Like I said, you consider that 5 tools that I made mentions of. Determine appropriate control, very essential. The appropriate PPEs. The PPE that is meant for working at height is totally different from the PPE that you are meant to use when you are working close to water. So common hazard include, we can have a chemical exposure, falling or dropping objects, particulates, temperature, extreme light, and so on and so forth. So remember, do we have any question before I proceed, please? Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
we can get you. Yes, we can get you.
Can I continue or we have something to talk about?
We can get you, sir.
All right. So remember, we've talked about provision of PPE. We've talked about PPE training concerning PPE initially. We talked about the assessment. Now they are talking about PPE selection. So talking about selection, what are the PPE to be selected now? Selected PPE should be what? Protect each employee, which is workers, from whatsoever hazard we're able to identify during our assessment. And that same PPE we selected, it must be safe and fit in a way that when employee is putting on such PPE, it means it is not endangering such employees again. Sanitary and reliable, well tidied up, clean, and also fit for purpose. And provide each employee with a good fit personal protective equipment. Most times, the standard require American National Standard Institute. If you check your PPE, your MX, your reflective, you will always see ANSI, which is the standard for American National Standard Institute. And these are the approved standard for almost personal protective that we use. And when we talk about standard, before we quote any standard, it is mean that it is worldwide or like it is recognized globally, not just restricted to one entity or to one nationality. So it means it is recognized globally. So most times we look at workplace and we observe that some employees, they are always they try as much as possible not to comply with the use of PPE, usage of PPE. Then we need to ask ourselves, what are the causes and why is it that they are not comply to the use of PPE? So we have some summary here that talks about why employees doesn't comply to the use of PPE. Most times you go to construction sites, you see some employees, instead of using their helmet in the right way, they turn it like a face cap, they turn it back. Then you've already devalued the purpose of using that personal protective equipment. At times you notice some workers tie their coverall to their waist, most especially women. you've already devalued the purpose of that same overall. So why is it that most times employees, they don't comply to the use of personal protective equipment? Number one, at times it could be that their employers does not provide them with the quality PPEs. And as we said during selections, when you are providing a PPE, make sure it is suit for the job. Don't provide PPE in the name of is a requirement for an employer to provide PPE. Provide a PPE that will safeguard the workers. Provide a quality PPE. Most times maybe they provide them with PPE that is not quality. They tend not to comply with the usage of that PPE. Also, when there is no proper supervision, don't expect whatsoever you don't inspect. There is need to adequately monitor workers for either the way they do their job or for them to comply with the safety protocols. It is very essential we monitor and supervise. Don't cageise them. The word supervision means you need to guide them in a way that is safe for them. Do not shout, but always make them see reason why they need to do A, B, C, D. Don't turn yourself to a police personnel, and don't be harsh. You can be firm, but try not to be harsh on employees so that they can always do the needful. Also, it is also essential. Most times, why is it that they don't use their PPE? Their employers might fail to enforce the use of PPE. And this comes in place when we talk about monitoring and supervision too. When you give people something, there is need to always re-emphasize that, okay, in this workplace, the PPE is also part of our safety gadget, and there is need for everyone to make use of whatsoever PPE that is provided for them. In as much they provided the quality, they supervise and they monitor. There is also need to also try as much as possible to enforce. But before talking about enforcement, in safety, we always think about encouragement, education before thinking of enforcement. 3E that makes the workplace safe. Encouragement. Okay, let's start from education down to encouragement. From encouragement, after encouraging people and they seems to be stubborn, then we can apply the word enforcement. So we can enforce people to wear PPE, but it doesn't need to get to that stage before we educate people on the need for them to put on the appropriate personal protective equipment for their task. Also, maybe they are not well trained. If an employee is not well trained, definitely they might fail to comply to the use of PPEs. When and where is PPE required? Where and when is PPE required? Any conditions, in as much you are in a work environment, construction site, from the gate of the construction site, they will tell you the mandatory PPE. Like I said earlier, safety shoe, it is very essential in every construction environment. In as much as a process area, PPE is applicable in that particular environment. Any other comments under that, it is just a support to whatsoever we have. So the place where we need to wear our PPE, when you identify a potential hazard, there is need to put on your PPEs, like hazard of processes. Like I said, it could be a shop floor, manufacturing company, construction environment, marine environment. All these are also an area where we are meant to put on our PPE. Environmental hazard, chemical hazard, radiological hazard, mechanical irritant. All these hazards mentioned here, it is always based on the adequate risk assessment carried out to be able to know the suitable PPE that we are going to provide for our workers. The PPE to be provided in construction sites is totally different from the PPE you recognize in maybe radiological environment. So PPE selection, there is always a guide for PPE selection, and choosing the right PPE for the right job is also critical for the workplace safety. So the essential of PPE can never be overemphasized. So we have some activities like general work at height, earth work, also concrete work, and likewise grinding work. We can't give general PPEs to all these activities. we have electrical work. We can keep mention, but our risk assessment will guide us to know the adequate PPEs we are meant to provide for our workers. Training requirements. Remember, we've talked about employers to make provisions for PPE. We've talked about selections of PPE. We've talked about where and when do we need to put on our PPE. Now, remember, we also said it earlier that training is also an essential part of PPE. One thing is to issue PPE for our employees, but have they been trained on how to use that PPE? So what are the training requirements for PPE? Then the training requirement talks about when PPE is necessary. We've talked about the time it's necessary. It is necessary whenever you know you are entering a process area. Process area could be a construction area, could be a manufacturing industry, could be anywhere you know there is a kind of related hazard in that particular. Even in class, we observe these days that they've changed most of our board to marker board. Unlike initial stage that we were using chalk, white chalk. White chalk also has its own hazard. You know, safety is a living and continuous. It talks about continual improvement. So when people notice this could be dangerous, this could affect the work-life balance of people, they try as much as possible to modify and to come with other improvement idea. So we change from blackboard to marker board now. So ISO 45000 talks about proactive risk management. Going further in future, we'll be talking about predictive. Predictive in the sense that to be able to go beyond proactive and predict what could happen, then that will also guide. We can only answer that after a proper risk assessment has been carried out, which we've been talking about risk assessment from the beginning of adjust and wear our PPE. It is also part of what we need to know about PPE. Limitation of the PPE, and also does it put ourselves under it could go wrong? No, PPE is just like a plan B to assist us if something finally goes wrong. Then training on proper care, maintenance, and useful life and disposal of the PPE. There are always a lifespan for PPE, and there is also duty of care for an employees to ensure they maintain and take good care of their personal protective equipment. Please, before going further, we also have employees to demonstrate and also understand the need for training and type of training that is required for their employees on the usage of PPE. Training should be documented, not only training related to PPE, because safety is always about improvement idea. There is need to document whatsoever process, whatsoever principle, whatsoever improvement, or whatsoever control we put in place. Whenever you have a training section, it could be 2 bus stop, it could be safety brief. Please remember, it is always essential to always have a documented evidence that this training was carried out so date by so person, because auditors will always ask, has so training been carried out for workers? There are always a training matrix for every activities, training matrix for every process, which it is meant to be documented. Like, we also have a training for task specific. The training for safety personnel is totally different from training for technicians. They might have a general training like emergency response training, which might be okay. So I said training should also be documented, which is it is also part of the key part of safety and the key requirement under ISO 45000. Some documents to be retained and some documents to be maintained. So please, at these junctions, I want us to ask a few questions if we have, or maybe we should try as much as possible to contribute, just for 30 seconds, please. So do you want me to continue, because no one is responding to the questions I asked now? Do we have any questions or any contribution, please? You know, safety class is actually like, we need to have a good communication, a good conversation. As I'm talking, only me cannot be talking. We need some contribution from our side. let's make it to be as if we are in a physical class so that we can learn new things. I want to learn from you the same way you are learning from me, please. So in the cost of no questions, so I would like to proceed. So also, we also have retraining requirements. Why do we need to do a kind of retraining? There are times that the hazard in the workplace might change. And also there are times that there might be a change to the PPEs. So for that reason, there is also need for an employers to do a kind of retraining for their employees. And also at times, some employees might not really receive a thorough training, like inadequacy in an affected employee's knowledge. So there is always good to do a refresher. Retraining means doing a refresher course for the employees within the work environment. And also, why do we need to do retraining at times? There are some assessments that the use of assigned PPE indicate that the employee has not retained training. They don't have a retained training. Some doesn't have the knowledge and why they need to use a particular tool. Like my company now, on a yearly basis, on annual basis, there is need to retrain workers on life jackets and also their hard hat, the helmet. This is just more of refresher awareness. There are also so many. Sunday, Douglas, please, let's try to mute our mic. There is need to do a retrain so that we can be sure that employees also really understand what it means on the use of their appropriate personal protective equipment, or as determined by result of accident investigations. Not only accident investigations, it could be as part of improvement idea from auditors or as a result of inspections carried out in our workspace. So some route of the exposures, as we all know, is just like normal biology or normal chemistry. The one that you inhale through your mouth is inhalations, and we also have the one that's injection. Yes, the one from the nose, inhalations, we have skin absorptions, and likewise through the injection is what we have as injection, not ingestion now, injection, the C. So there is need for us to know the hazard on its own, and this is where the risk assessment will always guide us to know what to do at every point in time. So the ingest is the one you take from the mouth. Knowing the hazard and how to protect yourself, it is very key to individual safety, not just your safety, your friend, your colleagues, and your co-workers. Their safety is also essential to you. Type of PPEs. I think we've mentioned the type of PPE earlier, so we also have it here now. It's just like a recap to what we have before. So eye and face protections, that talks about our eye goggle. Respiratory protections, that talks about nose mask. Head protections talks about the hard hat and the helmet. Foot protections talks about our safety boots, safety shoe. Hand protections talks about the gloves. Hearing protection talks about ear muff and the ear plugs. Body protections cover up. For protections, we have the likes of safety belts that we regularly know as safety harness. Please, if I'm too fast, you can call me back. So making the choice, there are series and numerous factors that we need to put into considerations before making any decisions concerning PPE. We need to consider the nature of the job we are to embark on. Like I said earlier, before you use any PPE, the risk assessment will give us a thorough understanding on what type of PPE do we need to put on. The nature of the job you want to do. I made mention of 5 key points: people, equipment, environment, communications, and emergency response. Now narrowing down to this, now we need to know the nature of the job, the condition where the exposure occurs, the coverall you are meant to use, or let's say the gadget you are meant to use in cold weather is totally different from when you are working in harsh or hot weather. They are not the same. The risk involved, This can be determined after your adequate and proper risk assessment. There are always a dynamic risk associated in our work environment, and don't think the hazard present can be treated the same way. Most times you need to review and reassess whatever the risk posed in your work environment. How long the PPE has to be worn? So the lifespan of the PPE also matters. Like a disposable coverall, it is just for you to wear once and dispose. And there are always a lifespan for every PPE we are using. Some companies provide coverall and safety shoe every 6 months to their employees, whereby some companies always provide the same PPEs once the PPE got damaged. Maybe after 1 month, after 1 year, they try as much as possible to provide another PPE. Ergonomic requirements. What do we mean by ergonomic requirements? The fact that we are providing people with adequate PPEs doesn't mean we should provide them with the PPEs that they will be trying or struggling to make use of. Like, I'm using size 40 safety shoe. If you provide size 42 or 43 for me, it means you just want me to wear PPE just to fulfill all righteousness. If you have to provide a PPE for me to be fit ergonomic, you have to make sure you make provision. Like safety harness, there are risks present in your work environment, or adding more to the activities at height. There is need to make provisions for adequate PPEs while working in your work environment. So the state of health of the wearer, like I said earlier, you consider people for every activities. Are they fit? Are they certified? Are they competent enough to carry out the task they are to embark on? Once you are able to answer all these questions, then you are good to go on your own. So safety is just a common sense. Safety is for you, safety is for me. But let's try as much as possible to always follow all the safety protocols so that we can be safe always. So we've mentioned about face protections earlier, and these are common examples of face protections that we have. So all these face protections, it depends on the activities we are to embark on. And always remember the American standard we also made mentions earlier. So you can see there are some face protection we are meant to use when we are doing hot work. We can see the face protection for swimmer. We can see the face protection for construction workers. Why do we need to wear this face protection? We have some fly particles, some electrical work, some molten metals, chemicals splash. Likewise, we have some vapors and gas, radiations hazard, and so on and so forth. So there is need to be able to determine what type of face protections we are meant to use, and we can only know this after our thorough and adequate risk assessment. Don't forget, there is need to always follow the standard of the American standard of PPE, the ANSI. It is there for us to follow. So eye and face protection continues. What do we need to know? So with prescription lenses, are to wear eye protection over prescription lenses. Like we said, see these welding activities, artwork activities. So and they are American standard that we needed to follow. These are the radiation hazard. If this light enters our eye directly, believe me, for the next 8 hours, 24 hours, you might not get yourself again. You don't look at these flashes directly. There are PPEs for that, and when you assess your work environment or the task, the nature or the scope of the job you want to embark on, you'll be able to know what type of face protections are meant to provide for my employees or for the workforce. When employees is exposed to radiation hazard, they are also meant to put on their face protections. Like we have it here. We have radioactive elements here. So, and that is why they are providing them with this particular type, this first face shield. And the face shield is actually meant for the weathers. For respiratory protections, we have them in grades. We have the one that we normally use in our health facility, like in the hospital, the white and green types. Those are the type they normally use for the hospital purpose. And they also have their own purpose why they are using them. Likewise, we have N95, M90 face protections. All these always depend on the adequate risk assessment carried out in our work environment before you can know what to be used. So for every activities, there are always a task specific PPE to be provided. All this is required for them to protect them. So for respiratory protections, we have protection against dust, fumes, fogs, mist, gases, smokes, sprays, and these are the task specific and the PPEs that is required when we are facing with any challenge related to respiratory issues. So, and why the need for the respiratory protections? So the respirator shall only be used when engineering controls are not feasible or are being implemented, meaning we can combine both engineering controls and the use of PPE to protect ourselves when we are facing with the challenge of respirations. Also, when exposure levels exceed the permissible exposure limits, most times there is what we call H2S, and this is common to mariners. When they are faced with H2S, hydrogen sulfide, there are exposure limits of that hydrogen sulfide. Then they are meant to wear their face shield. There are particular face shield that is meant for that particular hazard they are exposed to. And this is where the need for adequate assessment comes into practice. This is where the need for knowledge sharing comes into play, because you can't use general nose mask to prevent all the respiratory issues that we face at every point in time. And also for maintenance and repair activities, there is need to make use of adequate respiratory protections during an emergency. What are the type of respiratory protections we use during emergency? We have self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBA, and we also have escape breathing apparatus. They are two different things. We can only know this better.
Yes.
So there are some respiratory that is voluntarily according to OSHA standard, just to protect the workers when they are facing with any challenge related to respiratory hazard. So, and also standing on existing protocols, there is need for training, fit testing, medical evaluations, care and maintenance, procedures, how to on and off when respiratory protection is required, and also procedure for routine and emergency use of respiratory protections provided in our work environment. So for head protections, the common head protections that we know is hard hats. So it will be amazing why NEPA or why electrical workers need to wear helmets. You know, people do sweat. When we are sweat, and maybe peradventure we hit our head with the live wire, it could cause a dangerous effect, or maybe it could even cause fatality to that individual. For that reason, it is required that we should make sure as much as possible to put on our hard hat when there is an hazard like falling objects, flying objects, fixed objects, protruding material, and when working under high voltage equipment that involve horse climbing, working under high tensions, meaning what? The hard hat and the helmet is adequately required. And for mechanical activities, require for them to, most times they use bump cap just to prevent or to protect them from any impact injury that they might be facing with. So the color matters, but what really matters most these days, when there is no variable available, we make use of available variables. The need to put on hard hat, because most times the color might not really be essential, but for the sake of this class, we have red for fire people. Type 1, it helps to reduce force of impact from a blow to the top of the head, and type 2 helmet always help to provide protections against both side impact. So the type always depend on what type of hazard we are faced with. Type G, class G, talks about the volt, which means we are talking about the electrical and high voltage here. It talks about 2200 volts. It can withstand 2200 volts. meaning you are not going to use class G when you have a vote that is above 2200 foot. So for class C, it doesn't have any electrical protection at all. It means this particular class can be used for some activities like construction activities and some general activities that doesn't involve electrical hazard. So before use, there is need to always inspect, check the signs for dents, for cracks, penetrations, and also if there is any impact or any damage, there is need to replace that particular helmet. And that was why we made emphasis on training for PPEs. So for our foot protections, we have them in different forms. So everything about PPE is here. We have a safety shoe.
Hello. We can see your screen.
Yeah, you can see your screen.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know why the screen is going up and on. I don't know if it is from their side or from my side. I can't say. So when does foot protections require? When you have falling objects. Come again. Okay, sorry about that. So when we have a falling and rolling object, there is need to put on our safety boots. Like I said earlier, safety is a safety shoe, safety boots. They are general requirements anytime you find yourself in a process environment. When there is an hazard of slip, trip, and object piercing, where employees are exposed to electrical hazard, not only to electrical hazard. Hello, someone is talking at the background, please. Let's try to mute our mic, please. So when there is an when employees are exposed to electrical hazard, not only electrical hazard, when we find ourselves in a process environment, please try as much as possible to put on your safety shoes. I know some workers, they are fond of the habit of, we are not working at height, I don't want to use my helmet, I don't want to use this. No, any accident will never announce when it will happen. And for your safety boots, they must try 1-3 standard, but we don't need to cram. For our reference, sorry, the network is actually not favorable, but we'll do what we can do. So we can see some potential hazard and why we need to put on our safety shoes. Please, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see our screen.
Yes.
So we talk about impact legs. So most of these PPEs, they are steel toe, and there is need to be sure that we are not making use of steel toes for electrical environment, so that we don't add more havoc to the workers carrying out electrical tasks. For electrical tasks, it is essential to use a composite material instead of steel toes safety shoes. Steel toes like iron toes. So there is need to use composite material so that we don't endanger the workers working in an electrical environment. So we talk protocols. We always talk about the slip resistant soles, the oil resistant soles, protections against puncture penetrations, compatible with the environment, assure for proper fit, and likewise protect toes against impact and compressions. They need to be ensured that they are fit for the purpose, quality, care, manufacturer recommendations, and also to be ensured that they follow the standard. We also have hand protections. So skin absorption or harmful substance, severe cut or laceration, several abrasions, harmful temperature, thermal burns, and chemical burns. And likewise, we talk about puncture. These are the requirements that we need to consider before we make any selections for hand protections. So going by selections, we have glove. For some glove, we have mechanical glove, we have impact glove, we have soft glove, chemical glove. Who is talking? Please, if you are not talking, please let's mic. Oh, Yin Priye, please. So for the glove selections, it always depends on the type of hazard we are exposed to. And there is need to always, if it is chemical hazard, there is need to check SDS, that's safety data sheet, for guidelines to know the appropriate hand glove that we are meant to use. There are also a latex glove, and also powered glove must not be used for medical clinical purpose. Like whatever gloves we are meant to use, it is always, we can't just determine that particular gloves. The work scope and the nature of the activities we are to embark on will determine what type of glove we are to use. If it is chemical glove or impact glove or mechanic glove or medical gloves, we have different types of glove. Just the same way we have different type of respiratory protection. The same thing is applicable to the type of gloves we are meant to use. So we can see them here now. The common type of gloves will slow down for us to be able to see the difference. So definitely we are going to get the slide. So from there we can always make a reference and come back to check this. But to be precise, we are not meant to cram all these. Whatsoever task we are to embark on, what really matters most when it comes to safety is for you to be able to carry out adequate assessment and for you to be able to know the proper control you are meant to put in place. So, and also provision of PPEs, we are meant to know what type of PPE we needed to use for particular hazard. Hello, can we see my screen?
Yes, please.
Yeah, go on.
Okay. So for the PPE, for the hands now, we have disposable gloves, mostly used for the medical personnel. The fabrics gloves, most times all these people working in the bakeries, we have leather gloves, we have chemical resistant gloves, we have electrical gloves, and so on and so forth. So it is always determined by the risk assessment and the scope of the job. We need to know the scope of the job we are embarking on first. So glove donning and doffing. During COVID-19, people need to learn how to put on their glove and how to don their glove. So it is very essential to follow all these procedures. From step one, don't jump each step, most especially for biological substance hazard. There is need to follow this donning and doffing process, because if you don't follow it, hands might get contaminated. So that was why it was essential during COVID-19 and doffing their PPEs, because if someone that has been infected. So as we progress from donning of the gloves, so we come to ear protections. There are some activities that produce a kind of decibel above 85 decibel, and for OSHA standards, when you have such issues in your workplace, even some activities that is not up to 85 decibel, there is need to make provisions for hair plugs and hair muff. But like I said, the assessment of that work environment will determine what type of PPEs or what type of hair protections that we are meant to put in place. Leave the diagram if we are not medical practitioners, but what has to be done has to be done. Whenever you are exposed to noise in your environment, in your workplace, there is need to make use of adequate ear protections. These are the type of ear protections that we have. This is ear plugs or ear bands. We have ear muffs, the bigger ear muffs, mostly used in engine room, and also when the noise in that particular environment is beyond or above 85 decibel. Train stations, airports, they make use of ear muffs most times, and likewise earplugs can be used at the shop floors when we are dealing with our machineries and any of our equipment that make noise. And they also have the way we don and doff. So we can always have these procedures on how we don and how we doff. Practically speaking, just the same way we use our airport these days. So we can actually follow the same steps to put on our hair plugs and hair, except for the ear muffs. Ear muff is like the way you use your headphone, the bigger headphone, And for the earplugs and earbands, there are also a systematic way of using them, just the same way you wear your earpods. So you can also put in your earplugs and earbands. For body protections, why do we need to protect our body? So there is need to cover our body to some certain hazard that we might be exposed to in our work environment. So our body parts such as the chest, the torso, our backs, the legs, they are meant to be protected in our work environment. But everything depends on the scope of the job or the activities you embark on. So there is need to protect our body for heat, cuts, chemical hazard, chemical splash, contact with potential infections. Mostly we make use of disposable coverall when we are dealing with potential infections, like I made mention of COVID-19 or Ebola the last time. Radiation hazard. The coverall to be used for radiation hazard is totally different from the coverall to be used for medical hazard. All this can be put in place after proper assessment of whatever the job scope might be. Impact from tools, machineries, and materials. So we can see all this coverall. We know that even our raincoat is also part of the coverall, and this will be provided based on the weather conditions to every workers, and also depend on the tasks they are meant to embark on. But mostly, employees are not meant to work during when it's raining, because so many things could happen. But if you are meant to work, the proper PPEs will also be provided. But 95%, you are meant to apply stop work authority when it is raining. So there are different types of body protections. We have coverall, full body suits, sleeves, apron, coats, lab coats, insulated coats, electrical coverall, and so on and so forth. So we also have the one you can see. This lady is full of joy, putting on a nice coverall, and that was why we made mention of selecting a PPE that is suited for the purpose, quality, and fit for the task to be embarked on. So select and use the right type of PPE, protecting cloth, fit, properly wear, and also quality. They need to inspect, and also they need to store in a clean environment. Don't forget, for the coverall, it is also the duty of employers to ensure that they make provision for where an employees can always wash their coverall. So for the body protections, we have the first column and the second column. They talks about how to use and where to use each coverall. Talking about the paper-like fiber, which is the disposable coverall, and their functions. What do? They provide protections against dust and splashes. Majorly, they use them in chemical room. And treated wool and cottons. Where can we use all these? There is need to adapt them during a change in temperature. So you use them for your comfortability, not just to use, but the assessment of the work scope will also determine when each coverall are meant to be used. We have a rubber coverall, we have leather coverall. So all these can be assigned and can be provided for employees, basically based on the assessment of the work scope. What we have in the chart. For fall protections, I've made mention of safety body harness, and we can see all this climber now. Some people call it safety belt in the olden days, but it is really called safety harness, body harness, and it is meant to protect us when working at height. Climbers use it, people working above 3 meter, 4 meter, depending when you are working on top of the scaffold, man basket. So, and this is required when risk of falling at height of 6 feet or greater, when area is not guided or protected by other fall protection measures. Even when the area is protected by other fall protection measures, please, in as much there is an anchor point, there is need to put on our safety body harness. It helps a lot and to prevent us from falling from a feet of 6 feet. We can imagine when someone falls from 6 feet height, so we can imagine the effect. When you are working at any height in area lift, power platform, and similar equipment, So there is need for you to wear your lifeline, lanyard, safety belt. All these are safety protections gear that we are meant to use when working at height. Any elevated point, there is need to do a thorough assessment to know the required PPE that we are meant to use. Care of PPE. This is general care. It is not only applicable to the face mask now, but most times, because in an organization, they might not really have provisions for individual self-contained breathing apparatus. And people do use, during emergency, they make use of that same SCBA. Man A might use that SCBA. So there is need for you to clean up that particular SCBA after the usage, so that whosoever that wants to use it again will be fit to use it without contacting any infections or any virus from whatever the case may be. We need to check for the damage of our PPE. The need to clean that PPE before storing, even before usage. The need to clean them. Wipes is just the common things that is meant to be in our work environment to sanitize or to wipe out whatever dirt that might be found in any PPE that has been used before. The need to dispose of and replace any damaged PPE. Remember, it is the responsibility of employees to be able to report when there is a damaged PPE to their employers, and they can also make use of that report through their supervisor or their managers, that there is need for them to change their PPE. There is need to properly store our PPE and avoid conditions that could damage them. We need to think of heat, light, moisture, or whatsoever impact that may come across that same particular PPEs. Please note, do not fix or repair a damaged PPE, because the integrity of that PPE has been compromised. By the time you fix that PPE, it means you've compromised the real standard. You know, when they manufacture a particular PPE, to go through some certain tests. So if a PPE is damaged and you try to repair it, it means that the quality and the integrity of that PPE has been compromised. PPE acquisition and replacement. PPE is provided by a supervisor, department concerned, not the employees. It is not your duty to buy your PPE. It is the duty of your employers to make provision through your supervisor for the necessary PPE that you are meant to use on the job. When you are to perform an activities and you do not have PPE, there is need to contact our supervisor, our head, the head of our operations, the foreman, just for proper PPEs. But most companies, the safety personnel, the HSE officer, the HSE engineer, they are the one in charge of the PPEs. When you have any issue with your PPEs, you can always tender your complaint to them, and they will definitely change your PPEs. Employees may be responsible for lost or damaged PPE. The fact that the employers will provide us with PPE, that doesn't mean we should not take good care of our PPE. If you damage your PPE when it is not yet time, definitely you are meant to pay for that PPE. And that is why the need for training can never be overemphasized when making provision for PPEs for employees. And there is need to note, state equipment use policy must be strictly complied with. Inasmuch it is necessary for the employers to make provision for PPE, there is always a compliance that the employees must also follow. So the state of the equipment, the state of the PPE, there are always a policy for PPE. So all these policies must be duly followed by the employees and the employers. So for the summary of these tasks, for these particular presentations, in summary, we have responsibility for the employers and likewise responsibility for the employees. What are those responsibilities? The responsibility for the employer is for them to assess their work environment, to know the associated hazard that is present in their workplace. Use engineering controls or engineering practice to control all whatever hazard you are meant to control in your work environment. But always remember, the use of PPE is the least on the control or hierarchy of control when it comes to safety. Select and make provision for adequate and appropriate PPEs for your employees. Remember, the PPEs doesn't remove the hazard. It only reduces the impact of whatsoever hazard we might encounter in the course of carrying out our task. So always try to inform employees, that is through training, through awareness, to ensure they make use of their PPE, and also make sure that the employees, they are required to wear their PPEs. Supervision is very essential, and monitoring is also very essential to ensure that the employees make use of their PPEs after making provision for it. Comply with the standard. That's the rules for the employees. The standard for employees, their own responsibility and duty of care. They are responsible to comply with the standard, the regulations, and the rules of PPE. For them, there is need for them to make use of the adequate or the PPEs provided for them at all times, in as much they are working under a particular supervision. And they can only do this when the hazard has been identified and a control has been put in place. Report any unsafe act or unsafe conditions. Also report any damage of the PPE. So use the PPE in accordance with the training instruction procedures and the risk assessed in that particular work environment. At this junction, thanks everyone. Despite we have bridge in communications, I think we still try as much as possible to carry everyone along. It is time for questions and answers. So the floor is open from my side. So what have we learned so far so good concerning PPE? Always remember, I made mention of people, equipment, environment, communication, and emergency response. That key area are very essential for any job scope we are embarking on. So thanks for your time. The floor is open for the moderators to coordinate again, if we have any questions or any contributions from our side. So you are welcome.
Thank you very
Hello,
much.
moderator.
Thank you very much, dear Mr. Kolawole. We really appreciate your very nice and constructive training session. Thank you very much for living up to the call that is required from you. We really appreciate it. That's very good. I know the
You're welcome.
question. Yeah, I know the class have question, but before they start, we want to appreciate you for being an effective trainer, because we see through your material and through your manner of training also, you make things clear and understandable. That's really good. Now, class, we want to open room for, first of all, question. Then after question, you go for inputs. Because this class, as I said from the beginning, is going to be very impactful. Because all of us, almost all of us, should be conversant when it comes to this subject, being a safety officer, safety supervisor, or safety manager, even be an ordinary worker. You need to be conversant. So we have learned a lot from our trainer. So can you raise up your hand to ask your question? Nevertheless, we will start from some questions that are in the chat box. You go from them, then others will raise up their hand and ask the question. Then later, we will come for contribution and input. Thank you very much. So the very first question I saw in the chat box back then was, someone asked, after you have explained the type, the quality, type of PP they need to acquire, then somebody asked a question that the manual said that it should be the CE, that is the European conformity mark, European conformity mark. Why you are emphasizing on American standard? So somebody was asking you that he wants to know more about it. I think it was Mr. Samuel Nzulu. So you can go to his to answer his question.
Okay, that someone is talking about conformity. What?
Yes, when you were mentioning the brown, I mean the quality brown, you said that they should look for the American standard. Then
okay,
he asked the that the manual said that is the CE, the European CE is the European conformity mark. That the manual said that they should go for European.
You are breaking, please.
He want to know if to go for the American standard or to go for a European standard when it comes to.
So, either European standard or American standard, both are well recognized. In as much those standards are inscribed on the PPEs, they are well recognized. Anything standard always depends on, it means they are globally acceptable. So any standard that you see, a standard can never be publicized except it is well recognized or it has been passed into, like it has passed some test of time to because so particular standard. It's just like as we have ISO 45,000 now, 45,001 standard for occupational health and safety. So it means it is globally acceptable. Either you have American standard or global European standard. It all depends on the environment you find yourself. You know, if you want to play politics about standard, American people might tell you that when you are working in their premises, you must use their own PPEs, and you might be in Europe to tell you that okay, this, but in Nigeria or in Africa, we can use any standard in as much it is globally acceptable. Hope I've answered your question, sir.
Yes, yes. I believe Mr. Samuel Nzulu should be satisfied. So please, do you have any question, class? If you have question, raise up your hand before we start with the inputs. Please, if you have question, raise up your hand. We'll call on you before we go for input. We have Mrs. Leticia Taiwa. Mrs. Leticia Taiwa, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, hello, good evening to everyone. My name is Leticia Taiwa. My question is, how do one identify a helmet that is electricity resistant? Thank you.
So, Mr. Kolawole, this is her question.
I didn't hear the question, please.
Oh, she can go, please, Madam Leticia, you can.
Okay, so again, my question is.
Hello, please come again with your last. I didn't hear.
Okay, so my question is, how do one identify a hard hat that is electricity resistant? Thank you.
Hard hat. Okay.
Yeah,
for every PPE you are meant to use, like I said, for your organization, even for safety personnel, there is need for training for safety to undergo a particular training course. Like my company, we have series of PPEs. To identify that particular PPEs, it means we have been trained to be able to know, though it will be inscribed. Just like if your motor is to be used for petrol or to be used for diesel, they will inscribe it on it, the type of works or the type of task that particular helmet or hard hat is meant for. You can't just guess with your, like when it comes to safety, proper and adequate clear communication is always preferred. We don't allow people to guess or to assume that this particular PPE is meant for this particular task. They will definitely highlight what that particular thing is meant for.
Well, I'll take it like that, but I still want to be enlightened more about this.
Like I said, there are always numbers. It's not about you taking it like that. This is not my standard. For electrical, I can't cram every standard in my head. That is why I'm giving you the best approach to every standard. For PPEs, there are always inscriptions. What is meant for. Like we have some ratings in the cost of this course that they were talking about 22 volts hard hat and 22,000 volt hard hat. So it is even impossible for me to see hard hat from far and for me to tell you that hard hat is meant for so activities. It is barely impossible. I must stay close to that hard hat, read the instruction in that hard hat before I can be able to say, okay, this hard hat is meant for this purpose. I don't know if you are getting my point.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So it is not a guessing activity. We don't guess when it comes to safety. And that is why we can never overemphasize on refresher, awareness, and training. Training is very essential. We don't give room for guessing. And most accidents in workplace are caused by inadequate communication of hazard. Because most people want to be assumed that, okay, once I'm putting on coverall, then I'm safe. No, there is need to double check the type of coverall you are using, the type of environment where you are meant to use that coverall. You can't just assume that this particular coverall, you are seeing it from far, then you assume it's heat resistant coverall. No, it doesn't work that way. There is need to double check from your own side. How do you double check? You must have the knowledge of whatsoever activities. And how do you have that knowledge? It means you've passed through training that talks about assessment, hazard assessment, risk assessment, and how to put an adequate control.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Now, the next one is going to be Mr. Ovie Stanley. Mr. Ovie, kindly unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, good evening, sir. Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
You are welcome, sir.
I want to ask, you made mention concerning process area that they need to make use of their hard hat. So I want you to throw more light on it. Is it compulsory for everyone in the process area to make use of the hard hat? And please explain further what you mean by process area.
So process area refers to a specific area. Like when we say process area, don't allow the word process to get us carried away. Some people call it shop floor. Shop floor is also a process area. So let me come back to, if I keep using the word construction, so many people are used to construction activities. So the area where any activities is being carried out, where a work is being performed, process area could be your welders' workshops. Process area could be a construction environment. Process area could be a chemical room. Even our university environment, where we carry out our lab test, all these our chemistry lab test or biological lab test, they are also in the process area. We should remember that anytime we want to enter the lab, what is required, they will tell us our nose mask and what our lab holds. Now, I work for a marine company. My administrative staff, they don't put on safety shoes. Get this clearly. People that work in the admin, they don't put on safety shoes because there is an area where you can route where you can use to access your office. There is always even if you have a
Yes, thank you, sir.
Please, any other questions, please?
Okay, thank you for trainer for explaining. Now we open way for input. Mr. Ovie, is your hand still up? Is it the former hand? Mr. Ovie standing, your hand is up. Is it the former hand or you want to ask another question? Okay. So thank you for addressing this issue. Now let's open room for inputs. So before
I think it's the former hand.
Yes. Let's open room now for inputs. Now, first of all, we need to thank you very much for a job well done. That has been really practical and it really showed that you are expert in your domain. Thank you very much, Mr. Kolawole. Now, before I give the floor to Engineer Richmond. Okay, we have Egbe Fabrice. Egbe Fabrice, you can ask your question. before I continue. Your hand is
So,
up.
Mr.
Good evening. Good evening to everyone. I really enjoyed the class. My question is, can we make our process environment, like he said, conducive or more safe in a way that we don't really need this PPE? Can we make our process environment, like where we carry out our work, more conducive or a safe environment where we don't need PPE, as if we don't need people to be carrying on PPE everywhere?
Okay, so Mr. Kolawole, you have one more question. Can you try to answer before we go on?
Yes. Dr. Leon, can I assist in that question, please?
Oh, he's not there. Oh, sorry. Okay. So if you're not there, you can go on to answer Mr. Igwe Fabri's question.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a very wonderful presentation from the trainer. At least I was not there fully, but I guess it was very easy for everyone to articulate accordingly. And thank you, the moderator, to Leon, and also us and everyone. Okay. You see, when you are in the workplace and there is need for PPE, the first thing as a safety professional you need to do is to carry out what we call PPE needs assessment. PPE needs assessment. That very need assessment will help you to analyze and assess through the risk assessment to be able to know what PPE requires. For example, you are asked to change a window glass in a house. You know, you're already in the house and you have to change the window glass, okay? And very dusty one for that matter. So, executing that task, you all need to do your risk assessment based on the need assessment, based on the need for the PPE required, not all the PPE. So you may end up only having your eyes protection, or maybe using when you talk of PPE, I guess he also treated that you have different kind of PPE per each sector. Even in each sector, you have, for example, hand gloves. We have more than 500 types of hand gloves. Helmet, you have more than hundreds of hand gloves. For footwear, you have different kind of footwears. So the PPE need assessment will help you pick the appropriate PPE. That is number one. And number two, it will also help you know if you really need this PPE based on the hazards present in the task you have to do. And when you are doing that, not in the project, but in the task. For example, everybody may be in a project, but we are in different kind of PPE, different kind of safety shoes, because of different kind of tasks they are doing in one project. I guess this is going to help you. So that example I gave you earlier, you may just pick the eyes goggle, pick hand gloves because it's glass. That may be the only thing you are picking. You may not pick the safety shoes. You may not wear coverall. You may not wear helmet. So do you see it? So that is the way it works. So in some cases, you may only have to even wear only one out of all the whole body. So you need to check which of the body is exposed, which of the hazard, what is the target to the body. In some cases, if it's in an office, now you are using only a chemical, maybe in a bottle. So, and it's a toxic chemical. Is a toxic chemical. In such cases, you don't need helmet, you don't need hand gloves, maybe perhaps you may not even need it. But the high risk there is that if you inhale this chemical, you may faint. So you see everybody wear their nose mask or wear, depending on the kind of chemical, you may wear oxygen nose mask, respiratory systems and things like that, to make sure that that chemical, once it's opened, you are not going to inhale it. I guess this helps everyone in different directions. Thank you so much, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Walaka, for explaining this. Now, one more question from Mr. Dakoru Ipalibo. Dakoru, you can ask your question.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Go on, ask your question.
Okay, my question is concerning the care of PPE when the presenter was talking about care of PPE. My network got, so I wanted to ask about, for example.
I'm not hearing you.
Leon, I think network have put him off.
Okay.
But we have already understood what he's talking about. So, he's talking about care of PPE, and in that aspect, I guess he's listening to me, or maybe okay. I think he's totally off the network.
So what we can do, okay. Now, before I ask, I'll call on Mr. Hishma. I saw his hand before. He's one of the specialists of the PPE. Permit me to quickly, we have 3 minutes to go, but permit me quickly to come back to a question about the which brand, and good enough else have answered the question in the chat board that you need to use the standard that apply to your local area. That is correct. Now, why often American standard and European standard are often cited? Simply because they are well known as reliable, because the standardization process is undeniably tested, fitted. But now, one question comes to the mind. We should not be relying on standards that are not applying in our local community. Now, even when COVID-19 came, it brings a reality to our notice that both American standard and European standard also are lacking, because those conformity program has been constructed with only or with a narrow-minded. For example, when COVID-19 came, we see the realities of many women face. So this brings to the notice that the process of the standard need to be reassessed to allow everyone to get fitted. So let me make for example, during his presentation, we saw a lady that wear a coverall, but she does not look like someone that wear a coverall. It's like she's attending a fashion show. The coverall should not be something like it's not fitting. So most of them, they are reevaluating the standard process to make what we call the gender approach. That is, if it is a female that's gonna be using, she will feel comfortable. And we all know that females do not have the same morphology as men. So American standard and European standard are putting in place now such gender approach while elaborating standard on tools or even on process. Then we at our level, we don't want to rely on them. Though they are reliable, we want to construct our own standard. So please bring to the point that we need to contribute to the standardization of our country. We need to contribute to the standardization of our region. For example, as I'm talking to you, it's not just by phone. I don't on my video because I'm not around. I'm actually in Cabo Verde, where we are contributing to the standardization process of ECOWAS, that is West African Community. So since yesterday, I've been in Cabo Verde, we are contributing. So the point is what I want to ship in here, that please get involved in standard organization of your country. It is through those means that you make your voice known, you make your point known, so that while developing standard, they will include characteristics that are befitting you, that are appropriate to our area, so that when we want to make use of things, it will be according to our own standard. For example, in ECOWAS, we have what we call ECO mark. ECO mark is the standard of ECOWAS, that is West African country. All of them, they have an harmonized standard on things to use, either in a PPE, in a textile and garment. So we are working to standardization. Please, in your respective country, get involved in the standard organization. It will help us to have our own standard. Therefore, we will not be referring to European standard that is appropriate to Europe, American standard that is appropriate to America, but rather we have our own standard that will be fitting. So this is the input I want to make it clear that every part of the world can have their own standard, provided that the standard process is well established to make it efficient. So this is my little input about the brand to use. If not, every brand can work in the area. For example, as El said, you are not allowed to use American standard while in Europe. You see, European also, American also hold high esteem their own standard. If in America, you cannot use any European conformity scheme. So likewise in Africa, we need to start developing. But in Africa, we don't do things in a proper way. We always meddle technical things with politics and everywhere. But in the Western world, they don't do such a thing. That's why they are reliable. So let us contribute to the standardization of our own respective country to have a fit standard or a shared standard, or as what we call harmonized standard, so that we can feel that we are using something applicable to our area. So this is my little input. I don't know if Engineer Richmond would still want to answer, because I saw his hand up before. If not, we want to thank our trainer for well done job and all the contributors.
Yeah. Good evening to you all, and thanks to our engineer for the presentation. He has done once again wonderful, as he always does. Yeah, just a few add up to whatever has been said. Regarding the helmet, it depends on, we have a standard code. We have an international standard colors for helmets, and I think that was what our lady was looking up for. Maybe to say that green is for electrical workers, because green is a conductor of electricity or something. That was what I think she was looking up to here. Now, our engineer has been able to give us the breakdown of the various classes of helmets. Now, because we have different manufacturers of these PPEs, manufacturer A may use color green for a different purpose, and manufacturer B may use color green, maybe for electricity. In that case, he has given us the highlight of classification. Now, when we buy helmets from whichever manufacturer we are buying, it is up to us to look at the class, as we have been enlightened upon. Look at the class, and the class will determine which hazard the helmet can take care of. So I think that answers the aspect question on the helmet. Now with the PPE, Engineer Walaka have said a lot, but simply put, let us do our risk assessment. Do your risk assessment. I said it last week that there's no way you can eliminate hazard in your life. And even in your grave, there is hazard because there is heat down there in the grave, and there is darkness 24/7, 24 in a month. I mean, the whole year there is darkness. So there is hazard even in the grave. You get it? So there's no way you can eliminate hazard in your life. In that sense, you must do your risk assessment and put certain measures in place. If you think you can be careful enough not to injure yourself or injure the others around you or injure the environment, then you can do away with PPE. Like our engineer said, that PPE is the last resort. It is not to prevent the harm from occurring, but is to reduce the impact. It's just to reduce the impact. So if you think you can do away with the PPE and you can work safely, that you will not get any occurrences, then so be it. So this is the little that I will add to it. And the last one is that I said it last week, and I've also written it on the chat. Let us concentrate on our manuals given to us. For the slides, once the secretariat have your email address, they will send the slides to you. So let us not confuse ourselves with what we're doing. Thank you, my brother Leon.
Thank you very much, and by extension, we thank everyone, including the class instructor and everyone that listens. We really appreciate you. On this note, we are bringing tonight's class to its end in a very fantastic way. Thank you very much. At this time, you can unmute yourself and give a shout out before we go for our daily it's night already. Sorry, we go for night activity. So tomorrow we're gonna have class again, 6 p.m. UK time. And thank you all. Don't forget to take the road. Bye. 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 Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Everyone, bye.